I'd like to now call to the stage iWomen President Jeannie Pashalik, Larry Sagan, Executive Director of Fire 2020, and Chief Debra Amesqua.
One of the things I love about being up here is either I wrote large enough or the lighting's good enough I don't have to use my eyeglasses. It's an honor and a privilege for me to stand here this morning and to present an award to Chief Amesqua. Chief Amesqua recently retired as the Fire Chief of Madison, Wisconsin, which she was a chief for 16 years there. When she was appointed the Fire Chief, she was the first woman Fire Chief in Madison, Wisconsin, and the 7th woman in this country to be a fire chief. Chief Amesqua has done so much for women and minorities in our profession. She has worked relentlessly throughout her career to embrace diversity and inclusion as the culture for our fire service. She exemplifies leadership day in and day out. Leaders should lead by example, and she has done that. Leaders should create opportunities for personal and professional growth and development, and she has done that. I saw this in a recent trip to Madison, Wisconsin, and how collaborative and inclusive her department was and how much they embraced us to assist us. She's been a role model for women across the country with her dedication and commitment to diversity and inclusion, not just in her own department, but with her work with Fire 2020. I would like to present this award to Chief Amesqua with her outstanding work to create a culture that embraces diversity and inclusion. Before I present that award, I would like Larry Sagan to have a few words about Chief Amesqua as well.
All right, Larry, I paid you well now.
We had an opportunity to be together at the IFC conference where Chief Amesqua was presented with the Fire Chief of the Year award in August, and she was kind enough to thank me as one of her sisters. So I just want to say that Debra Amesqua is one of my sheroes. She has taught me about caring and compassion, and those are her two magic words. That's the value system that Chief Amesqua has been leading for over 16 years in the fire service. And it's truly been an honor to be able to serve with her, not in the fire service, but in support of the fire service. So, Debra, I love you.
I love you too, man.
And I look forward to a real great future.
Thank you. I want you to note the man. Thank you.
Thank you all so very much.
As I mentioned, Chief Amesqua was the Fire Chief of Madison, Wisconsin for 16 years. And I mentioned she was the first woman chief in Madison, Wisconsin. As Larry mentioned, she was recently honored at FRI as the 2011 Fire Chief of the Year by Fire Chief Magazine. She is nationally recognized for her work on senior level management training for women in the fire service and for breaking down barriers for people of color. She has authored and presented national workshops and authored several papers on executive officer career development. She has an associate's degree in fire science, a Bachelor of Arts with honors in business and management, executive fire officer credentials, chief fire officer credentials, and she has attended the Executives in State and Local Government program at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy's School of Government. Chief Amesqua is our keynote speaker this morning. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you.
Well, I just want to add one other credential. I'm a member of the human race, and I think that's critically important, as well as a member of EDI, the Executive Development Institute. which we participated in many, many, many years ago. It's such a wonderful organization. Go Roaches, if any of you know Go Roaches. That's what you call a rookie EDI member, is a roach. I'm not much for standing up in front of a stage. If you all have seen me before in the past, you realize that I've got too much energy to stand up in front of a podium. And I love to get close to people. And I like to see every person, every face, and touch you in some way. You are the future of the fire service, and that is extremely important. You wouldn't be sitting here if you didn't care about the fire service. I feel passionately about the fire service. It has given me a tremendous career. I've been in the fire service since 1983. I started in Tallahassee, Florida, as a rookie firefighter in August, the hottest day of the year, August 1 in 1983. And while we were introducing ourselves to each other, the training officer took us out to the tarmac. We were in the training division, and it was on an old airport facility. And our job was to dig out all the grass and all the cracks on the tarmac for the day. And I thought to myself, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? Little did I know that it was so important for us to be able to build some sort of team concept, being able to work with other individuals to dig that grass out of the cracks. You know, how do we do that with some kind of enthusiasm and some excitement about who we are? Those kinds of experiences are so important as a foundation for who we are as an organization. Now, my career in the fire service has been blessed. Being a part of the Tallahassee Fire Department was so wonderful. I mean, I was very much invited into the stations. We opened up brand new Station 6. I was working with individuals that had over 100 years worth of experience. And none of them treated me poorly. That wasn't the case for a lot of women, especially in my era. That was not the case for a lot of women. And I reached out to people in the fire service because I had no idea. I had no history. I have no historical knowledge about the fire service because my family were migrant workers. And they would move from city to city working in the fields. And so for me, that kind of teamwork and camaraderie was something very new, but it was something I felt so compelled to be a part of, to be an important part of. I promoted through the ranks fairly quickly. I'm a very competitive person. And during that period of time, it was important for me to figure out what was important to me in my life. I had already had a professional career by the time I got into the fire service. I was a music major at Florida State University from 1969 to 73. I was a clarinet major, classical guitar minor. I got into data processing, and so I was in the data processing field when the fire service really became really important to me. So I came through the ranks and promoted through the ranks in Tallahassee, and then I realized if I'm going to be effective and in an important part of the fire service, I need to be able to get into a position so that I had some sort of power to make decisions. And that is the fire chief position. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to be promoted in just a minute. So let's flash forward to 1996 when I was, in 1995, I went to the Harvard program. And if any of you have an opportunity to go to the Harvard program, please do that. You meet individual leaders from all over the world. You're sitting next to a person that may be a president of some small country. And you're having a conversation with those individuals about how you make decisions What kind of values do you base your decision making on? That's sort of the crux of the Harvard program. So critically important, because all of you are considered the future of the fire service and leaders in the fire service. So in 1995, I was the last day of the Harvard program, and our instructors said, who in this room, after all of you, what you've learned in the Harvard program, who in this room is sitting on your laurels and not stepping out of your comfort zone to try to impact your industry? And there were lots of different industries there. There were only 2 of us that were representing the fire service at the time. And I had to raise my hand and say, you know what? I love my job in Tallahassee. I'm very comfortable. I was an assistant chief at the time. I'm very comfortable where I'm at, and I probably could retire doing the job that I'm doing right now. But if I'm going to step out of my comfort zone to make a difference, then I had to apply my knowledge and my skills in a different level. And that's when I applied for the fire chief position in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, I don't know if you all know my history, but those guys were laying in the weeds waiting for me when I came to Madison. It was not an easy transition. And I did not expect it to be an easy transition. You know, I expected controversy, and I was not disappointed. The union president came into my office shortly after I got to Madison, and he said, you know what, Chief Amesqua? In 2 years, you will not like me. And sure enough, within 2 years, he had amassed the largest turnout for a vote of no confidence in the history of the organization. And at that moment in time, my world changed. I questioned everything about who I was as an individual. It rocked my world. My family was impacted. My friends were impacted. My mom called me up and she said, we love you. We know who you are. You do what you think you need to do. I had individuals that came to me and said, this is it. You know, we'll write your exit speech for you. And at that moment in time, I had to decide, was the fire service worth the fight? Or was my life more important? And at that moment in time, I said, the fire service is where I want to be. So the union at the time created a document of their concerns. And that was the blessing in this story. The blessing was that the union had taken the initiative to really think about what their concerns were, and they put it down on paper. That was the blessing. That was the roadmap to my success. Because I looked at that document and I saw the things that were in there, and they were reasonable. They were not unreasonable. They were quite reasonable. There were things that I could do, the low-lying fruit, the things that I could do. The other things, such as increase staffing, improve equipment, you know, those sorts of things that take council approval, those were things that we could work on together. So I used the vote of no confidence and that document as my roadmap to success. Now, this was not easy. This was not easy at all, because every single day when I came into work, there were issues. You know that. There were grievances. There were tons of grievances. There were grievances that would come in at 4:30 in the afternoon on Fridays, and you knew you had to respond within 3 or 4 days, so that left the whole weekend for you to ponder that thing and noodle it and come up with an answer. But we persevered year after year after year. Now, my administration and my philosophy is that if you are going to be inclusive and diverse, the best way to do that is to have some sort of solid foundation that you're working from. And my foundation and what I created during that period of time was that if people were caring and compassionate towards each other, then it didn't matter what color you were. It didn't matter what gender you are. It didn't matter whether you agreed on issues or not. If you could deal with each other in a caring and compassionate manner, then you could come and find some solid ground, some ground for discussion and to build relationships. And that's what this is all about. Fire service and leadership is all about relationships. It's all about relationships between you and your coworker and you and your community. Hugely important. So year after year after year, the union and I, we would fight with each other, but yet we kept things on a very civil level. It didn't always sound like that in the newspaper now. It didn't always look like that in the newspaper and where the politicians got involved. But year after year after year, little tiny steps at a time, the union and management began to see that we were all fighting for the same thing. We were fighting for a better fire service, and we were fighting for the safety of our community. And then, all of a sudden, things changed. We were singing Kumbaya. We were going to the council. We were increasing the number of stations that we had by 2. And you know when you increase a station, it's $4.5 million, 18 individuals to run the rigs 24/7, 365 days a year. Okay? And that's $1.9 to $2 million a year increase. We did that 2 times. We increased the number of ambulances by 2. And then we were successful in getting the Safer grant, and we added another double company. And this is during the time when all of the other fire departments were laying off people. We're cutting the stations. We're having to consolidate. The union and management in Madison, Wisconsin, we were thriving. We were hitting all the balls out of the park. Now, 2012, January 3rd, I sewed this rocker on my coat. I retired. And that same union president that orchestrated the vote of no confidence came into my office and said, "Chief Amesqua, what will it take to keep you?" No can do. No can do. But I love the fire service, and I love the relationships that we've built based on that concept of caring and compassion. Okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about leadership. We've heard people speaking this morning about leadership. And I want you to know a few things about what I've learned over the last 28 years in the fire service, and particularly the last 16 years as a fire chief. There are a couple of things that I don't want to forget to say. Caring and compassion, if you're going to have some sort of theme, a vision, you need to start creating your vision about who you are in the fire service and what the fire service is going to look like in the future. Okay? So you create this vision and you write it down. Because if you don't write it down, it's just a wish. But if you write it down, then you know exactly where you're going in the future. So write down some sort of vision for yourself and how it fits into the fire service. And you have to be able to defend that vision based on core values, truly core values. I don't lie, I don't cheat, and I don't steal. Those are my core values. Those things I really care about. That's what I will fight for. It's what I will go to the wall for. I will die for those values. Know those values within yourself. Good leaders build relationships. And that's what you're doing here. You must build relationships. And not just with the people that are your supporters, but build relationships with your adversaries. You know, there's an old saying, you keep your friends close and you keep your enemies even closer. That is so real, because you'll be surprised in the fire service that your enemies really is just the flip side of the coin of who you are. You know, and you need to have that perspective. Get as broad a perspective as you possibly can by keeping those people close to you and building that strong relationship. You must role model whatever vision you have. I can't tell you how many times I've had adversaries come in my office and stick their finger in my face and tell me where they think I need, where the sun don't shine. I'll tell you, they will tell you in very harsh terms what they think you need to be doing. But as a leader, you need to be able to listen carefully to the concern, not the words, but listen carefully to the concerns, so that you have a really good idea of what is the problem. And that is so important in leadership, is figuring out what the problem is, not all the stuff that's hanging on the issue, but what the real problem is. And so you must be able to listen and role model whatever vision you have. Now, in my leadership style, I have a mantra that we've used in Madison for many, many years. And it goes something like this. When I hire you or I promote you, I want you to proceed until apprehended. Now, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by proceed until apprehended? And this is a management skill and a leadership style that I've developed. What it means is, I hired you and I'm going to promote you because I think you know what is important to the fire service and you know what needs to be fixed. I should not have to tell you that, because you're the ones that have been in the rank and file. You've been out there in the field. You're the ones that are riding on the rigs. You know what needs to be fixed. When you're sitting in my seat at the top of the echelon, you can't always see that. So when I hire you, I want you to make decisions. Make decisions on your ability to see what's wrong, and you're based on your knowledge about what needs to be fixed. And in return for that calculated risk that you're going to take, I am going to support you 100%. And if you make a mistake, I'm going to throw myself under the bus for you. Okay? If you make a mistake, don't worry about it, because I've asked you to make those kinds of decisions, because I can't be everywhere. So you're proceeding. You're making decisions. However, if I have to throw myself in front of the bus for you, I want to know why I'm doing that. I want to know that you've had good reasoning for making the decisions that you've made. And that's what proceed until apprehended is all about. So if you're going to live by your vision and you're going to allow people to empower them to make decisions, then you have to support them. You have to support them with your own behind. You have to throw yourself in front of the bus for people. Now, great leaders, and this is an important concept, great leaders visualize what does not exist today. And then they manage and they lead from that perspective. Okay? Let me say that again. Great leaders envision what does not exist today. And they manage and they lead from that perspective. Critically important. The fire service that I grew up in since 1983 does not exist today. It has changed so dramatically. Things are changing every single day. And so for you to come into the fire service and think, oh wow, I'm going to be part of this really cool organization and we're going to go along our merry ways, putting the wet stuff on the red stuff, yippee. You're doing a disservice to the fire service because we're changing so dramatically right now. We only fight fires 0.5% of the time that we're actually on duty. Do you realize that? And that 80% or better of what we do is emergency medical services, or the other buzzword nowadays, fire prevention. Fire prevention, critically important to the fire service. We have dramatically dropped the number of fatalities in the fire service through fire prevention efforts. One of my proudest accomplishments in the city of Madison is that since 2007, December 30th of 2007, we have had one single fire fatality to date. Over 4 years with one single fire fatality. And that fire fatality was caused by someone carelessly cooking after they had been out drinking all night long and they did not have a smoke detector that was working. We have really focused our energy in Madison on creating a culture within the organization of safety. We're creating a culture within the city of Madison on safety. So you have to think about a fire service, at least from my perspective, where you have fewer and fewer and fewer fire fatalities. I guess that's the name of the game. And create a system around that. Create a cohesive community system of fire safety. So think about those concepts. Okay, I'm going to finish with a couple of stories. Back in 1983, just like all of you, I was asked to do programs at the schools. And as I said, I was a music major at Florida State University, 69 and 73, so I played guitar, and I would go to the schools and play and make up songs, and we would sing and dance and have a high old time, and it was just really great fun. And so the teachers came to me and said, the kids want to give you something to show their appreciation. And I said, okay, have them draw me a picture of what they think the fire service looks like. And this is probably mid-80s. An 8-year-old boy, he drew me a picture of the fire ground. It had engines, it had ladders, the house was on fire, the smoke was coming out of the chimney and all the windows, and the fire streams were shooting on the house. And all of the firefighters on all of the rigs were women. They all had earrings, they had necklaces, they had dresses, high heel shoes, all of them. Okay? Now, think about this. Today, that kid is 30 years old or better. He has no concept of the fire service without women. That's how important you being in the fire service and wearing this uniform and showing up to work and being in your community visibly, that's how important it is. Now, this was in the mid-80s. 2 weeks ago, I met with a friend of mine at a local liquor establishment. We were having a little bit of a good time, okay? We're having a fun time. And she says to me, Chief Amesqua, my daughter, she's a firefighter. This woman is a firefighter. My daughter came to the fire station, and the new fire chief in Madison, Wisconsin, was going around and making his social visit to the station. And so Laura says to me, Jeannie, I want you to meet new Chief Steve Davis. And her daughter is 8 years old. And so her daughter turns to her mother and says, oh, he's doing a woman's job. Okay, this change in the fire service is now in the DNA, okay? Kids expect to see women and expect to see women fire chiefs. incredibly important. And that was the joy of my career. That was the joy of my career. That was the essence of what was important to me when I got into the fire service. Now I want to finish our little discussion this morning with sort of a poem or a phrase that has stuck with me for many, many years. And I don't remember who actually wrote this. I think it's kind of a story, but I paraphrased. And it goes something like this. When I come to the end of all of the light that I know, and I step out into the darkness, I have faith that I'm going to land on solid ground, or I will learn how to fly. God bless you all. Please enjoy your conference together. Get to know each other. Get to know somebody you don't know. And if there's ever anything I can do to help you in your career, please do not hesitate to give me a call. Thank you all so very much.